Part 93. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 924. Understanding. Jia Yan said what he had learned, and the surrounding audience could hear it. They were all a little surprised by Jia Yan's words. You must know that most of the creatures in the genius battlefield are geniuses, but for them, promotion of strength relies on solid strength improvement. For comprehension, almost all it's a legendary statement. But they didn't expect that Jia Yan would obtain the so-called enlightenment right under their noses. Jia Yan, it's a good thing that you can understand. But the power of understanding is still no match for me. The two pairs of arm monsters, after a strange look flashed in their eyes, moved and came to Jia Yan. Jia Yan had been on guard for a long time. When he saw the opponent's attack, his legs sank directly into the subspace, and his body entered the subspace before the opponent's attack came. But Jia Yan didn't expect that this monster actually had the means to deal with subspace. Seeing Jia Yan enter the subspace, the two-armed monster punched out. In the subspace, Jia Yan felt his body suddenly tighten, and then he was enveloped by a kind of power. It was difficult to move in subspace, but now being enveloped by this power, Jia Yan suddenly found it difficult to move. It's actually an environmental control force. Jia Yan was startled, and then the brainwave power was also used. After cancelling out the opponent's environmental control power, he barely escaped into a deeper subspace. Hiding deep in subspace again. Seeing that their environmental control power could not affect Jia Yan, the two pairs of arm monsters shook their heads in displeasure, and then stared at the surroundings warily. He was careful enough, but because he didn't have space talent, he couldn't clearly see Jia Yan, who was hiding deep in the subspace. Buzz. Suddenly, these two pairs of arm monsters felt a wave of energy behind them. Behind. His expression hardened, and then he turned around, intending to attack from behind. But what shocked him was that what came from behind was a terrifying attraction. It's that weird suction energy. Where is his body? The two pairs of arm monsters were shocked and quickly tried to get rid of the black hole's gravity. But he didn't expect that under the influence of this power, part of his power was offset. And at the moment when it was entangled with the suction power, a faint blue figure appeared slowly behind the monster and stepped lightly out of the ground. This figure is none other than Jia Yan. He smiled slightly when he saw that the two-armed monster was indeed attracted by the power of the black hole to attract most of its strength and attention. After that, Jia Yan quickly thrust with his front foot. Puff! The two-armed monster received another blow and was even more seriously injured. But he also burst out with strength and avoided Jia Yan's attack range after being affected by gravity. Although the danger was saved, the scene of the rabbit rising and the falcon falling still left all the spectators stunned. Jia Yan actually has the advantage. Impossible, there must be something wrong with my eyes. In the previous battles, he relied on luck and shady secrets. Now he actually fights with a top -20 player without any tricks and still has the advantage. The battle between Jia Yan and the two pairs of arm monsters continued, but as they fought, all the monsters became at a loss. If this is a battle between two semi-star level experts with similar strength, then forget it, but now among the two parties fighting, one of them is actually a being whose strength is only that of the venerable. This makes all the creatures watching the battle wonder. Feeling shocked and strange. Jia Yan's master's strength has been criticized before the war, especially since the star sector he came out of is only the 251st star sector. Even if a genius appears in such a star sector, he must wait until he goes to the central star. Only with the help of guidance or resources can you soar into the sky. But Jia Yan was able to emerge from a weak star sector and then defeat half-star geniuses in these 132 star sectors. No one dared to believe this. Bang! With Jia Yan's blow, the entire starry sky shook. During the battle, his strength was like an inflatable ball, rising rapidly as if there was no limit at all. With this blow, one of the arms of the two pairs of arm monsters was directly broken off. The two pairs of arm monsters were shocked and angry when they saw that one of their arms, which they regarded as a weapon of attack, was broken by Jia Yan, a little venerable person. They looked at Jia Yan, trembling and speechless. "Senior, can I impress you with my strength?" Jia Yan's protruding forefoot, emitting blue light, stopped in front of the other person's forehead, and asked in a light tone. Give up. The two pairs of arm monsters originally wanted to say something, but when they saw the blue front legs above their heads, they were unable to say any angry words. Anyway, he is not the only half-star genius who has lost to this venerable man, so he has no shame in admitting defeat. Seeing the opponent admit defeat, Jia Yan nodded with satisfaction and put down his front foot. Jia Yan, another victory. The commentator Erding Wang on the high platform looked at the scene in disbelief. Although he was extremely reluctant, he could only declare Jia Yan's victory. Compared with when Jia Yan won before, the entire spectator stand and the player seats were extremely noisy. This time Jia Yan won, but there was only silence in the audience. Because this has exceeded the imagination of the audience. They simply couldn't understand how a venerable could win one after another in the Urshan Power Genius battle. He was only at the venerable level, but he could actually win the championship of the next level of the strong. Taking a step back, the second level champion still had a chance of winning given that he was a terrifying mid-level genius. But then this venerable man actually dared to participate in the semi-star level genius battle. Originally, all the viewers thought, this Jia Yan is just here to be funny. But now they can't laugh anymore. Everyone can see that Jia Yan's strength may be extremely terrifying among this semi-star level powerhouse. Even the two pairs of arm monsters that were originally tentatively ranked in the top 20 were actually defeated by him. This anyone who sees it will no longer laugh at Jia Yan for being weak. But how can a venerable person have such strength? Because no one could figure it out, the audience collectively made a gaffe. The creatures in the tornado force were also a little dazed, so Jia Yan didn't say anything when he returned to them. The battle on the high platform was carried out like a machine, and neither side of the battle had much interest. What all creatures are paying attention to is how far that mere venerable can go, standing in front of the first 20 and half-star powerhouses, a little creature that is not big enough to swallow in one bite. In this top 10 battle, the two sides are, Fire King, Jia Yan. When the King of Erding announced the first battle of the top 10, the whole genius battle, which had been quiet for a long time, broke out into a commotion inside and outside the ring. Can Jia Yan still win this time? He is facing the third strongest player in the Erlong force, and the 11th strongest player in the entire 132-star region. If he can still win, it will be truly incredible. I have never heard of a venerable being able to reach this point. Isn't this something that a moderate genius can do? Didn't the tornado forces release the news a long time ago that Jia Yan is a high-level genius? None of us believed it, but now we are all slapped in the face. Jia Yan is definitely a high-level genius. He should even be among the high-level geniuses. A very powerful person. I was wrong. I apologize for insulting Mr. Jia Yan before. I looked down on others. Mr. Jia Yan must be a high-level genius. It was my lack of vision. Listening to the silently changing direction of public opinion, Jia Yan smiled lightly and slowly flew onto the battlefield. Jia Yan had made a decision before, that is, to participate in this semi-stellar battle, regardless of winning or losing, and he still thinks so now. But if he can get a chance to win, he won't miss it. Jia Yan, thank you very much for participating in our Erlong Force Genius battle. Let us countrymen in the 132nd Star District see what real geniuses are. The opponent is the third strongest in the Erlong Force, even more powerful than King Erding, who is commentating on the high platform. He was a lion-like monster. After he walked on stage with light steps, he looked at Jia Yan with no expression of sadness or joy. But the words he spoke were not so cold. But, Jia Yan, you have gone too far. A venerable person wants to trample on the majesty of my half-star strong man in the 132th sector. Please, even if you are a high-level genius, I will let you see it. See, the power of my half-star strong man in the 132th sector. Jia Yan nodded. Although the opponent was speaking harshly to him, Jia Yan at least sounded more palatable than the trash talk from his previous opponents. Senior, I hope you can let me see it. Well, let's get started, don't keep the audience waiting. The lion monster also nodded with an unchanging expression, which was regarded as a signal. There is a huge difference in stature between the two. The lion monster is over 300 meters tall and over 500 meters long. Compared to Jia Yan, whose head and tail are only over 100 meters long, he is like an elephant or an ant. He can reach it with just one kick. Trample Jia Yan to death. But now the elephant looked at the venerable Jia Yan with a solemn expression. The reason is that in the previous battle, Jia Yan showed that he could truly threaten the top 132 semi-star powerhouses. Jia Yan, a monster lying on the ground with a head height less than 50 meters, stared at the terrifying lion monster with a height of 300 meters for a long time. The distance between the two is 5 kilometers. Compared with the emptiness of the entire battlefield, these 5 kilometers are almost the same as zero distance. The space seemed to be frozen. The surrounding audience also did not dare to make a sound. They were surprised in their hearts. Before this, no one would have thought that one of the two warring parties who brought them such a mood would actually be a little venerable. War. At a certain moment, Jia Yan spat out words, and then his body shot forward fiercely. Facing a more powerful opponent, Jia Yan felt that his mood became more exciting, his body became more agile, and his explosive power seemed to be slightly stronger than before. Fight. When the lion monster saw Jia Yan's attack, it also had a strange look in its eyes and roared angrily. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 925. The universe can be said to be boundless. No one knows what kind of life and race will be born in this vast universe. People on Earth don't know that in their minds, the giant mosquito monster is like a god. In places far away from the Earth, there are also beings that require a life and death battle to defeat. Even in this universe, there are creatures that the giant mosquito cannot defeat at all. The giant mosquito is none other than Jia Yan. Aha! In the sky, a white pair of bright lights shined. This is a battle wave between two powerful monsters. And when they collided once, the two sides quickly separated. After that, they collided fiercely together again, and the fluctuations caused by the battle almost made the watching creatures stagger around. Your Excellency Jia Yan, you are really powerful. During the battle, the huge, earth lion-like monster burst out laughing. Senior, your strength is not bad either. The other monster's entire body was blue. Although the energy it erupted was far weaker than that of its opponent, it actually didn't suffer much of a disadvantage during the fight. The two sides continued to fight. That blue monster is naturally the legendary protector of the Earth, the giant mosquito clan Jia Yan. Now Jia Yan is a little embarrassed. His strength has improved greatly in a short period of time, but he still encounters a tough battle. In this fierce battle, the opponent's Erlong Force monster showed strength that belonged to the 11 strong men in the 132-star district. Jia Yan, who had just been promoted to the late stage of venerable and whose strength was not yet stable, found it extremely difficult to deal with it. Jia Yan, your strength is enough to make you proud. I never thought that I would be able to fight like this with a venerable person. The lion monster opened its huge mouth, and the fangs in its mouth were like sharp spears. Then the giant mouth bit down hard, as if it was going to swallow the mosquito monster in front of it into the bloody mouth. But before that, the giant mosquito monster accurately kicked the fangs of the lion monster with its foot. Using the reaction force to retreat dozens of kilometers, Jia Yan entered subspace. Here comes another move. I said this move is useless to me. When the lion monster saw Jia Yan entering the subspace again, his expression changed and he didn't have much fear. Instead, he listened to the 6 directions. Observe your surroundings. But this time the situation is different. When he felt the fluctuations on his side, he also felt that the fluctuations were gravity. Do you want to deal with me the same way you deal with the Sara? I am not the Sara. When the giant lion monster saw that Jia Yan actually used the gravity of a black hole, he immediately understood Jia Yan's plan. He ignored the gravity behind him and slapped one of his paws in the opposite direction. Sure enough, a faint blue front foot stabbed out from the void, and was hit in the face by the claw. There is a thin layer of energy defense on the claws, and the sharp points of the forefoot cannot penetrate at all. Jia Yan, who had just appeared in the real space, was directly knocked away by the force of the slap. But when Jia Yan was knocked into the air, a twisted space appeared behind him again. During the inverted flight, he entered the subspace again. With such an exquisite space talent, no wonder Nalan Wu will lose to you, but against me, this little space ability is not enough. The giant lion monster struck somewhere in the space again, and as if he had predicted it, Jia Yan actually appeared in that space. Jia Yan was knocked away again. But during this inverted flight, the black hole's gravity actually appeared behind Jia Yan's body. He was knocked away by the black hole's gravity, and he actually turned his head. With the help of the black hole's gravity speed, plus the slap speed, turned around and rushed towards the lion monster. The giant lion looked startled and wanted to avoid it. But the speed at which several powers were combined exceeded his dodge speed. Jia Yan stretched out his front foot, and the blue front foot passed through the side of the lion monster, bringing up a trail of blood. After fighting for a long time, Jia Yan finally injured his opponent for the first time. Of course, Jia Yan also had some scars on his body, but his injuries were becoming less and less common, while the giant lion monster was in some condition. After a few more attacks, the giant lion monster was injured again. This time, Jia Yan cut off one of the opponent's fangs directly. Roar! Jia Yan, let's fight. Why are you cutting my mighty fangs? The giant lion monster roared angrily, and then its movements became faster. It seems extremely hot. But Jia Yan let out a long sigh of relief at this moment. This lion is tired. Although he is extremely powerful now, his accuracy and momentum are more than one level weaker than when the war started. Jia Yan knew that the battle was almost over. The claws fell, and Jia Yan retreated into the subspace. But before he could come out of the subspace, the opponent's unique environmental control power penetrated deep into the subspace, trying to capture Jia Yan's body. Jia Yan dodged a few more times to avoid the catching force. The next moment, Jia Yan flew out of the subspace, and the place he appeared was right behind the lion monster that consumed a lot of power. Another flash of blood. This blow made the giant lion monster look up to the sky and roar. He was in pain because Jia Yan used strength in this attack and stabbed directly with his front foot, piercing the vital part of the lion monster's spine. I give up. Jia Yan, you are really good. The giant lion monster felt that he could no longer fight, and quickly announced his resignation. When he heard this announcement, Jia Yan was also a little exhausted, flew to the sidelines, and then looked at King Erding on the high platform. This one, Jia Yan wins. King Erding was stared at, and his originally stunned expression suddenly trembled, and then he couldn't help but declare Jia Yan's victory. He is also scared. King Erding is also an extremely powerful semi-star powerhouse among the Erlong forces, but against King Erhuo, whom Jia Yan defeated, he could only lose. and Jia Yan can defeat King Erhuo, doesn't it mean that defeating King Erding is also a piece of cake? The look he used to look at a joke or a hateful junior turned into a look of fear. King Erding didn't know why he was so frightened, especially when Jia Yan looked at him again with a half smile but not a smile. He even trembled all over. There was once again a long silence on the audience stage. After a long time, some creatures sighed with emotion. I didn't know what the true genius of this genius battlefield looked like before, but I finally saw it today. That's right. Fortunately, I used to think that the difference between myself and higher level geniuses was just a matter of chance. Today, when I meet Mr. Jia Yan, I realize that I am just a frog in the well. It's sad and lamentable. After these monsters who seemed to be enlightened spoke, countless voices suddenly filled the audience. Your Excellency Jia Yan has won again. I really regret that I scolded him just now. Why does he need to cheat with such strength? Fire King is the 11th strongest in our star region. Now Lord Jia Yan has defeated even the 11th strongest. Could it be that he really wants to win the semi-stellar championship in one fell swoop? In this battle of geniuses among the Erlong forces, want to win 3 consecutive championships too. Although his current strength is not enough to defeat the top 3 strong men, with such a genius, who knows what cards he will have in the future. I dare not say that he is not good now. Every audience member no longer had any intention of insulting Jia Yan's strength, especially those who scolded Jia Yan harshly before, but now they are secretly afraid to speak for fear of being sprayed to death by others. Jia Yan slapped one face after another. Almost half of the millions of viewers were slapped in the face by him. And these people who were slapped in the face didn't dare to say anything, because everyone recognized that Jia Yan was a high-level genius. Who dares to speak harshly to a high-level genius? Not to mention other things, Jia Yan's strength is now enough to kill most of the creatures present. Of course, that is one-on-one. Jia Yan saw the creatures of the tornado force, and now even Taijin looked like he was seeing the most powerful person, and he bowed his head respectfully. Alas, Jia Yan sighed. Changes in strength are sometimes not necessarily a good thing. At least in terms of the relationship with the creatures of the tornado force, Jia Yan knew that it was impossible to go back to the past. Lord Jia Yan, the top 5 competition will begin soon. Your opponent will jump to the top 5 level. Are you still sure? Taijin came to Jia Yan respectfully and asked somewhat submissively. Even though he had long believed that Jia Yan was a high-level genius, he now discovered that Jia Yan's strength was much greater than his own, and Taijin's performance was completely different. He didn't dare to talk nonsense and went to Shiyuan no longer dares to claim to be Senior Jia Yan. Senior Taijin, I will fight. I believe that even if I lose, I won't lose my life, Jia Yan said calmly. I believe in your strength, sir, so I wish you success. Taijin nodded. Jia Yan was about to respond, but the next moment, his expression suddenly changed. Not only him, but also the top 50 beings with half-star strength in the Erlong Genius battle, their demeanor changed drastically. Jia Yan raised his head, and the dozens of strong men also raised their heads. High above the starry sky, a void-like hole quietly appeared. It has a diameter of 30 or 40 kilometers, and it is dense, with streaks of explosive lightning flying through it, making it extremely terrifying. What's this? Jia Yan looked at this strange change in space in shock, with a look of bewilderment in his surprised compound eyes. What a terrifying power! What's in that void hole? Jia Yan stared at the hole. At this moment, most of the creatures around the entire arena had noticed the strange scene high in the sky. Hey, what's going on in the starry sky over there? There is such a terrifying astronomical phenomenon. If you don't tell me, I don't know. What is it? When the audience and contestants were all a little confused, the hole in the void. A huge bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, as if there was an explosion there. After, a gigantic foot, all black, quietly stretched out from the hole. At first glance, this foot is no less than a kilometer long, and the terrifying giant creature behind it is unknown how huge it is. It's a little late, sorry. Thanks to the book friend 201702100223200012 for the 500 starting coin reward. Thank you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 926. In the starry sky, an extremely terrifying huge foot suddenly appeared, which seemed very abrupt. At the same time as the feet appeared, a huge monster that was originally vague slowly appeared above the heads of the creatures. Jia Yan stood in the player's seat. When he saw this fuzzy monster, he knew that he was the official powerhouse of the genius battlefield that he had seen several times, the stellar powerhouse Longta. Who's coming? Just when everyone thought that Longta definitely knew who the coming monster was, they suddenly heard him asking about the origin of the monster. At this time, even Jia Yan was surprised. You must know that the genius battlefield official is an existence that can cover the sky with one hand in this genius battlefield. The existence that slowly stretches out its feet is definitely one of the star level ones, but Longta, who is an official strongman, does not. Did you know he would show up? Who is here? A trace of doubt flashed in Jia Yanfu's eyes, and he looked at the empty space with a cracked circle. The monster slowly stretched out its legs in the space and finally appeared in front of all living things. This is a monster that is vaguely similar to a goat, but compared to the earth goat, it is countless times larger. Its head and tail are 5 kilometers long. It stands in space like an ancient demon. You are the official expert of Genius Battlefield. Longta is right, right. When the goat monster saw Longta, who was about the same size as himself, he showed no fear at all and just asked lightly. That's right, you are not an official expert in my Genius Battlefield. What's the reason for you coming to my Genius Battlefield? When Longta saw this monster, his expression was a little solemn. At the same time, as the official existence of Genius Battlefield, he had to express his position, so he asked with a slightly stern tone. Haha, the Genius Battlefield is still the same. It doesn't care about strong people like us who have left. Longta, I was born at the same time as you. I wonder if you still remember me, the Western Bandit. The huge goat monster showed no fear of Longta, but instead spoke aggressively. Western Bandits? Are you the same sheep tribe that has been as famous as me for a while? Didn't you withdraw from my Genius Battlefield because you couldn't be promoted to the star level? Why? Longta seemed to have thought of the other party's identity and looked at him slightly shocked. Yes, I quit the Genius Battlefield, but after I left, I joined the stellar academic field 20,000 light years away, and now I have become a star. Listening to the goat monster's words, Longta's expression remained unchanged, but his heart seemed not so calm. Jia Yan and the surrounding creatures who were listening to all this below were talking about it. I've heard about the Stellar Academy. It's another place similar to the Genius Battlefield. I heard that the forces that built it have a feud with the forces behind our Genius Battlefield. I didn't expect that this Western Bandit was actually withdrawing from our Genius Battlefield. After the domain, I joined the Stellar Domain. It was simply. Don't say that word. You also know how terrifying a star-level existence is. He must know that you are talking about him. It's not worth being killed by his brainwave power. Jia Yan listened to the words of the surrounding creatures and finally figured out the origin of this huge goat monster. The Stellar Academy. It turns out that there are other places in the galaxy that are similar to the Genius Field, and this bandit couldn't become a star in the Genius Field, but in the Stellar Academy, he actually became a star. Jia Yan was thinking lightly about the relationship between the two parties, while Longta high in the sky had a heated conversation with the huge goat monster. So, West Bandit, why did you come to my Genius Battlefield? You won't tell me that you came in without going through formal procedures. Then I have the power to kill you. Longta was dismayed. There was a sharp flash of light. Haha, don't be so nervous, Longta. I remember that your character is not so impulsive. The Western bandit smiled lightly. Of course I have to go through the procedures. After all, although I am already a star, but it's not even close to fighting against your entire genius battlefield. As long as there are formalities, tell me your purpose of coming here. Hearing his words, Longta nodded. Longta, I have always kept in mind the humiliation I suffered in the genius battlefield. Especially when I was surpassed by you, I felt very unwilling to do so. So, do you want to fight me again? It was impossible for any creature present to interrupt the conversation between the two powerful men at the stellar level, especially the Western bandit. The huge sheep didn't even look at these millions of geniuses. It seemed that in his eyes, the millions of people below him creatures are not in his eyes at all. After all, the Western bandit himself came out of the genius battlefield. He understood that this was just the edge star area of the genius battlefield. Even if there were millions of creatures here, it was destined to be a gathering place for the waste of the genius battlefield. No, Longta, we are already at the stellar level. The impact of fighting will be too great. You don't want to cause a diplomatic incident. The Western bandits didn't seem that interested in Longta's belligerence. Longta, I brought a few students here this time. By the way, I forgot to tell you that our Stellar Academy is a system similar to a teacher's one-on-one training of students. Compared with this system, the genius battlefield is backward. That's countless times more advanced. I'm here this time to bring my students to challenge you, the geniuses in the battlefield. Oh. Longta looked at the huge goat not far away. I don't care if you challenge my genius battlefield, but why are you looking for me? Tell me. Longta didn't seem to care about the challenge mentioned by the other party. In his opinion, the genius battlefield and the stellar academic field have existed side by side for so many years, and the stellar class they have cultivated have always been the mainstay of the hostile forces behind both sides. There is no distinction between them. This Western bandit can compete in the Stellar Academy. Being promoted to star level doesn't mean anything. As for the challenge, he was even less interested. The genius battlefield was never a place to accept challenges from the enemy. Haha, Longta, you are still the same, pretending not to be interested in the challenge, and then defeating me with all your strength. This time I won't be fooled, Longta. I specially brought the students here this time just to ask them to challenge you. Whether you go to the central star area of the genius battlefield to find a familiar genius, or go to the genius battlefield official to request top geniuses to fight, in short, if you can bring out the geniuses, you can fight with a few of my disciples. Whoever wins more will win. How about it, do you dare to fight? Oh, inviting a battle with a familiar genius. After listening to the other party's words, Longta didn't have much interest. But as an official of the genius battle territory, he was approached by other star territories at this moment, and it was impossible for him to be timid in fighting. Okay, I'll go find a genius I know well and let's talk about how to fight. Sure enough, I have two venerable level geniuses here, one is a late stage venerable and the other is a peak venerable level. You first find the geniuses who are in the venerable level and fight them. After the fight is over, I will have a second pass behind me. The geniuses at the Zhejiang level and the semi-star level geniuses are all my disciples. In my opinion, they are not much different from the top geniuses in the genius battlefield. If you can find all the top geniuses at these levels, you might be able to win. The goat monster looked at Longta calmly and said words that shocked all the creatures below. Along with his words, two monster figures slowly flew out of the empty place. These are two beings whose demeanor is different from ordinary monsters. One's aura shows the late-stage strength of the venerable without any hidden traces, while the other is at the peak of the venerable. but the goat monster above said that their talents were all top geniuses, which shocked all the creatures. You must know that the existence of top talents is like a treasure in the genius battlefield, especially the top half-star geniuses. To a certain extent, they can fight with an ordinary star-level genius, but now this person comes to look for him. The troublesome experts from the stellar academic field actually brought several of them here. What a terrifying demeanor. Although I can't feel their specific strength from a distance, this demeanor is not something we can compare to. I never thought that I would be able to see top geniuses in my life. Tai Jin was beside Jia Yan, looking at the two venerable monsters in the sky with some confusion, as if he saw faith. Jia Yan looked at him, and then looked at the two great sages in the sky. The sparkle in his compound eyes flashed away. Not just Tai Jin, but all the spectators of the Erlong genius battle, as well as all the powerful men, were all shocked by the changes in the sky, especially the two venerables. This shock was even greater than seeing the star-level West Bandit. Because stellar-level powerhouses are not uncommon in the genius battlefield, but top-level geniuses are extremely rare, and even rare in the entire genius battlefield. Many geniuses who join the genius battlefield have never seen a high-level genius in their entire lives, let alone an illusory top genius. You must know that everyone is destined to advance to the star level. Just after entering the star level, they can defeat most of the terrifying geniuses of the ordinary star level. And now there are actually two suspected top geniuses appearing in front of them. How could this not shock them? Nalanta was also shocked. He looked at the two venerable level monsters summoned by the Western bandits, especially when the venerable peak existed, with a hint of shock in his eyes. Sure enough, it is a terrifying talent. After a long time, Longta said these words in a long voice. Haha, Longta, just understand. How about it? If you are sure, go find a genius you know. Of course, if you are not sure, declare you a genius in the battlefield. You are not as good as our stellar academic field, and the training system is not as good. I am in the sidereal academic field. Longta, I trust you very much. These two sages are just the first test for you, but don't tell me that you can't pass the first test. After hearing the words of the West Bandit, Longta nodded and continued to ask, West Bandit, I know your purpose, and I also know that these geniuses are not just your students. Don't rush to quibble. Now I ask you, how much time do you give me to find a genius to fight with your student? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 927. The bandit wanted to explain something, but after hearing Longta's words, he stopped explaining. In fact, similar things are always done between the two star regions. In fact, those who come to provoke are basically the top geniuses in this star region. The geniuses brought by the Western bandits were not his single disciples, but treasures of the entire stellar academic field. This is something everyone knows, so he doesn't want to explain anything. These two venerable level students have a heavy promotion task and don't have much time to wait. I'll give you a month. You can report the request to the top of the genius battlefield now, or leave immediately to the Central Star District to find a familiar genius. Maybe you can make it in time. 1 month, Longta nodded after hearing this. After that, he turned his gaze to look at the group of genius combat creatures below. The geniuses of the Erlong forces below, including some hidden geniuses in the audience, saw Longta's eyes and either shrank in fear or nodded respectfully towards him. But there is a genius who is different. That is a genius who is still blue all over. His compound eyes looked back at Longta, and then at the two great sages flying out of the void. A fighting spirit flashed across the surface of his body, as if he was not afraid of the so-called top geniuses at all. Longta smiled lightly. West Bandit, thank you very much for giving me a month, but these two venerable juniors are geniuses among geniuses, and I dare not disturb their training time. Well, I don't think it will take a month, and now there is if a suitable genius fights against them, they can finish the fight quickly and go home to practice. Longta's eyes swept down the battle stage where Erlong's geniuses were fighting, and then stared at the inconspicuous Jia Yan among the tall monsters below. After that, under the gaze of millions of pairs of eyes and beings, he spoke softly. Jia Yan, come up. Aha! Almost instantly, countless eyes and cameras in the entire area turned to Jia Yan's body, which was only a fraction of the size of the surrounding creatures. They were shocked and appalled. What was shocking was that in this matter that related to the reputation of the entire genius battlefield, Longta would actually call out a venerable person on the spot. The reason for shock is that Longta, the official star-level existence of the genius battlefield, actually has such trust in the venerable Jia Yan. Under the spotlight, Jia Yan didn't seem to be surprised at all. The moment his eyes met with Longta's, he seemed to have read a similar meaning in Longta's eyes, and Jia Yan reciprocated the other's look with fighting intent. Yes. Jia Yangjing responded calmly, and then slowly flew up among the ordinary geniuses. As soon as he flew up, his light that seemed to have been covered up bloomed. The azure figure and the confident eyes all indicate his confident demeanor that makes people dare not look directly at him. The feeling of Jia Yan flying up was like the azure sun rising, flying higher and higher. Slowly, there was a tit-for-tat confrontation with the two stellar academic masters who appeared in the void. No sense of disadvantage at all. The Western bandits high in the sky looked at Jia Yan flying up, and they couldn't hide the shock in their eyes. Originally, he thought that it was impossible for any talented battlefield genius to appear in this remote area, but now it seems that he was wrong, and how wrong it was. In this place where even high-level geniuses should not appear, there is an existence that seems to be a high-level talent. That's right, the talent that Jia Yan is showing now, in the eyes of a star-level being like him, is still just a high-level talent. But this Western bandit understands that the geniuses he brought are only two high-level talent experts. There is a secret agreement in the talent competition between the two star regions, that is, top talents will not be easily dispatched. I didn't expect that there would be a high-level genius next to Longta. Did he already know that I would come and be prepared? In any case, this high-level genius is only in the later stage of the venerable, and I can feel that, it's just someone who has just been promoted to the late stage of venerable. Not to mention the peak of the venerable here, even the genius of the late stage venerable may not be able to defeat him. I've met Senior Longta, I've met Senior 11 Bandit. Jia Yan came to Longta, respectfully greeted Longta, and then greeted the location of the Western bandits. Haha, Jia Yan, I didn't expect that I would invite you one day. You have seen what happened before, right? Now I want you to defeat these two guys, how about it? Are you sure? Longta saw Jia Yan flying into the sky, showing no fear at all, especially in front of their two tit-for-tat stars, and he immediately smiled with satisfaction. Senior Longta has a destiny, so Jia Yan is naturally willing to serve. I can't say for sure, but at least I can solve a problem for Senior. Jia Yan responded with a faint smile. His eyes glanced disdainfully at the later being of the two great sages in the sky, as if he thought he could easily defeat the opponent. In fact, Jia Yan was also very excited. Originally, he didn't think there was much to be gained in this Erlong genius battle, because even if he lost against a semi-star genius, no need to guess the reason, it must be because he was weak in energy. Compared to others, the half-star level of 132 sector would not allow him to experience more powerful combat skills. Unexpectedly, when the battle was about to end, something like a Western bandit would appear. Of course Jia Yan is willing to fight against a powerful genius from another star field. Okay. Very good. Longta, I underestimated your genius battlefield. It is indeed different from when I left. In this edge star area, I can also see such a terrifying genius. Very good, he is a late stage venerable, and his brainwave strength is similar to that of one of our venerables. Let's let them fight now. When the Western bandit saw Jia Yan flying to Longta's side, especially after his conversation with Longta, he understood that Jia Yan was about to fight the venerable he had brought, and his eyes suddenly flashed with cold words. Road. Originally, he said that Longta would go to the central star area of the genius battlefield to find helpers, but he didn't expect that someone would point out a powerful genius on the spot. This was no different than a slap in the face. Wait a moment, you will kill him directly. The Western bandit was angry and directly ordered the late-stage genius beside him. Leave it to me. The venerable late-stage genius nodded lightly, and the look he looked at Jia Yan was filled with murderous intent. Because of Jia Yan's words before, it seemed that he didn't take him seriously. But just as he was getting ready and waiting for Jia Yan to appear, Jia Yan shook his head and spoke. Senior West Bandit, as I said just now, I want to fight your two venerables. After I defeat this late-stage friend, I will then fight the venerable's peak friend. Asshole, do you think you can beat me? In the later stage of the Western bandit's life, he could no longer bear Jia Yan's contempt for him, and roared with brainwave power in anger. Yes, I will defeat you. Jia Yan had no intention of changing his words, but said calmly. Okay, both of you, don't fight with your mouth. The Western bandit looked at Jia Yan and his venerable person who was talking gloomily. Jia Yan, don't talk big words. As long as you can defeat Ma Chi, I will let you fight Duojian. It doesn't matter. If you can't win, it's useless to talk big words. The brilliance in Jia Yanfu's eyes flashed faintly again, and then he nodded to Longta. He flew towards the more open area of space around him. Boy, your name is Jia Yan, right? You will pay for what you said. The late-stage venerable being from the sidereal academic field also slowly flew over. As a top genius, he has a very high status in the sidereal academic field. Even the top geniuses would not look down on him too much. Now he is being treated so senselessly by Jia Yan. Suddenly he was furious. Of course, he still had the air to be a genius, so he didn't show it too much. Please enlighten me. Jia Yan didn't pay attention to the opponent's trash talk at all. Perhaps compared to this genius, Jia Yan had experienced too much trash talk, so his mental quality was much stronger than the opponent's. Just now, we were fighting against the geniuses of the Erlong Force, and now we are suddenly fighting against the geniuses from another star region. Life is indeed unpredictable. Jia Yan watched the other party come to him, feeling so emotional in his heart. This is not to distract him, nor to look down on this genius, but to adjust his mentality. He is destined to be powerful, but my strength is not fake. Even Edisha said that even if I fight against the top geniuses now, I won't lose too much. I will just run away at most. Jia Yan's eyes were full of fighting spirit, and he. Just now, Longta had sent him a message, saying that this late-stage venerable, and that venerable at the peak, were just the top beings among the higher geniuses. They were far away from each other. There is a slight gap between top talents. Jia Yan's talent in Longta's eyes was also a high-level genius, but he didn't know that Jia Yan still had some advantages that Longta didn't know about. What's more, Jia Yan's talent was not fixed, it can still be improved, so Jia Yan is confident now because of his own advantages. Teach me something? Okay, then I will teach you how powerful my stellar academic field is. The late-stage monster of the Venerable is actually not much different in size from Jia Yan, but it has two big heads, and the surface of its body is uneven, as if there is a volcano in the body, which is constantly rising and falling. Jia Yan and the other party looked at each other indifferently on the star. Their battle is about to break out. As for the creatures below, almost all of them thought they were seeing a dream scene. Oh my god, Jia Yan actually went head-to-head with the self-proclaimed top genius. Not even the two-star level beings questioned Jia Yan's strength. So, Jia Yan is also a top genius? I. So that's it? I'm really blind. Jia Yan is a top genius. I should have known it a long time ago. If he is not a top genius, how could he defeat a half-star powerhouse in his body? And also he can defeat several of the strongest semi-star level experts in my 132-star region. It turns out he is a top genius. Who scolded Mr. Jia Yan just now? Stand up for me. You actually dare to scold a top genius with a high status in our genius field. I will beat his legs. Thanks to the two brothers Miscellaneous Water Bottle and Yuya Pavilion for their respective 2000 starting coin rewards. With your support, Bulletin, you can keep writing. Thank you. I can eat one more steamed bun today. Thank you. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 928. Chapter 1 Death. Among the audience, the direction of public opinion has changed. People who were originally not so friendly to Jia Yan actually have a great favorable impression of Jia Yan. Mobile access. Especially seeing that he was actually confronting an outsider now, everyone immediately started talking to Jia Yan. After all, compared with provocations from outside geniuses, matters in the genius battlefield are completely different between internal affairs and diplomacy. Fighting one's own people to death is one thing, but when outsiders insult the genius battlefield, everyone is naturally on the same page. Foreign. However, the two monsters above did not pay much attention to the monster army below. Jia Yan, I didn't expect you to be quite popular in this backward place. The two-headed monster seems to have some disdain for Jia Yan's character among these ordinary monsters. You must know that in their view, a powerful genius whose strength is completely impossible for ordinary creatures to touch, so life the circle must also be separated from them. Jia Yan's association with these weaklings means that Jia Yan is not qualified to be called a genius with them. It's just a small reputation. It's useless to talk more. Let's fight. After Jia Yan finished speaking, he slowly flew towards the two monsters. The two monsters also nodded, and then more volcanic undulating power squirmed in his uneven body, and then flew towards Jia Yan as well. The two powerful men were flying slowly, like the calm before the storm, but neither of them suddenly used their power. Arriving at a distance of 500 meters, Jia Yan could clearly see the disgusting body of the other party. And the other party also saw Jia Yan's mosquito body clearly. As the first genius who comes to the genius battlefield and fights with me, Jia Yan, I promise to let you die beautifully. The two monsters were named Ma Chi. After sizing up Jia Yan, he showed a touch of confidence, especially when he felt that Jia Yan had only just reached the late stage of the venerable. You must know that there is a huge difference in brainwave power between geniuses, because geniuses can use every ounce of their power to the extreme. Jia Yan ignored him. In the sky, he stretched out his front feet. Puff. Just 1 kilometer away, Jia Yan suddenly entered the subspace. It turns out he is a person with strong space talent. Ma Chi will not be scared by Jia Yan's talent. Seeing Jia Yan entering the subspace area, he took his time, his bumpy body moved slightly, and then a forefoot appeared behind him, but he dodged it. Jia Yan, your attack somewhat disappoints me. Ma Chi turned around and struck with a half smile. So fast. Jia Yan's heart tightened. He actually saw that this genius with similar strength to himself was faster than several semi-star geniuses he had fought before. But his demeanor didn't change much. At the same time as the opponent struck, he blocked a front foot in front of him and had a direct collision with the opponent. The entire starry sky was like a planet exploding, and there was a bright glow. The force of the collision between the two was actually like a bolt from the blue, creating an artificial starry sky scene in the universe. This scenery is extremely bright, and its power is terrifying. What shocked the audience the most was that under this power, the two venerable geniuses were able to control their own bodies. After Jia Yan collided with the opponent, he understood that Ma Chi's strength was indeed something that could not be underestimated. Especially in his colliding bodies, there was an extremely terrifying force that shook his front feet away. Naimeki also had a dignified attitude towards Jia Yan's front foot attack. His blue front feet actually have a sharpness that scares me. If I didn't use the strength to swing the front feet away, I might have been injured. Ma Chi looked at Jia Yan's front feet with fear, and her heart suddenly thumped. She was no longer so confident in her victory. The two sides continued to attack. For Naimeki, Jia Yan's attack was a simple straightforward attack, completely physical. But the opponent's skills made Jia Yan feel suddenly enlightened. You must know that Jia Yan's strength has always been invincible at the same level. Now he suddenly saw a being of the same level who could fight two moves with him. Of course, he had to carefully observe the opponent's attack and defense. But in terms of the opponent's offense and defense, Jia Yan clearly felt that he had a greater advantage over him in terms of skills. I see. The method of deflecting my attack is based on prediction and conditioned reflex. It seems that he is far better than me in basic skills. Jia Yan finally made a judgment on the opponent's strength. After all, the advantages and disadvantages among geniuses are all very clear. Jia Yan's own advantage is the fierceness of his attacks. As someone who often fights opponents stronger than himself, he tends to be fierce in both attack and defense. That is also an extremely normal situation. In just this battle, Jia Yan saw his own shortcomings. Sure enough, only by fighting with a true genius can I see my shortcomings. The front foot suddenly collided with the two-headed monster, and the opponent's head turned to one side, avoiding Jia Yan's blow. But this fierce blow made the monster feel a little frightened. Jia Yan, you weren't trained in a formal genius system at all. This move is too random. Ma Chi was a little shocked and a little angry. He thought Jia Yan was not following the rules. No matter what your moves are, as long as you can win. Jia Yan responded lightly. The opponent's moves are indeed more sophisticated than his own, and it can also be seen that the education and system he has received far exceeds Jia Yan's, but so what? Bo. A light attack landed on the ears of the two monsters. A pool of blood spurted out, and Ma Chi was directly injured 2 minutes after the battle started. Oh! Lord Jia Yan! The cheers below were extremely loud and shocking. You must know that this is a battle against a suspected top genius. Jia Yan can actually injure the opponent within 2 minutes. It is absolutely exciting. Haha, when this Ma Chi appeared just now, I thought she was some kind of thing. It turns out that she can't beat Lord Jia Yan. Even a top genius is not enough to carry Lord Jia Yan's shoes. You are mistaken. This is why our Lord Jia Yan is so powerful. Jia Yan established the advantage with one strike. This scene surprised not only the monsters watching the battle, but also the invading star-level monster Western Bandit, as well as another one who came with the order. The venerable monster was a little unhappy. Although Jia Yan's strength is also strong, he obviously hasn't gone through too many battles between geniuses. The balance of strength between the two sides will be evened out next. Seeing that Jia Yan actually injured the top talent he brought, the Western Bandit was a little embarrassed. You must know that he thought that Longta would need to ask for help for at least a while before he could find a venerable person who could fight Ma Chi. But now someone called him a genius on the spot, and even injured Ma Chi, which was a bit of a slap in the face. Sure enough, Jia Yan's fighting method was still a bit too monotonous. After Jia Yan hurt the two-headed monster first, the opponent slowly mastered Jia Yan's attack methods, and the balance of the battle between the two sides actually tilted a bit. Just when Jia Yan entered the subspace and wanted to strike out at the opponent's side, a shot foot came to Jia Yan. Jia Yan only felt an earth-shattering shock in front of his eyes, and then he suffered heavy injuries. Jia Yan, I have thoroughly studied your fighting style. It turns out you are just a layman. Naimeki hit Jia Yan with one blow and pursued him like a shadow again. Ma Chi used 80% of the force of the blow that Jia Yan had just received. He believed that Jia Yan would not be able to recover quickly from this blow. Now he pursued the injured Jia Yan to his side and only needed one blow. Jia Yan can be killed directly. As a near-top genius with a lot of combat experience, he has too much fighting experience. Of course, the previous battles were basically fought with some well-known geniuses in the stellar academic field who had exquisite fighting methods. So when he first came into contact with the previous Jia Yan, he was a little confused, because he rarely fought against such a straightforward genius, and this straightforward existence was not as talented as him, which was a bit confusing. It went against the appearance of the sky he had seen before, so it made him less adaptable. But now he has adapted to Jia Yan's fighting methods, and his original advantages in skills and enemies are also reflected. This blow will kill you. He believed that Jia Yan was seriously injured in the previous counterattack, and now he could win as long as he pursued him. Die. Ma Chi aimed at Jia Yan's flying body, suppressed it with the power of brain waves, and then smashed down with all her strength with her front foot. With this blow, he thought Jia Yan was going to die. But just when he felt that it was impossible for Jia Yan, who was knocked away by him, to move his backhand, Jia Yan's compound eyes flashed with faint light and suddenly turned towards him. At the same time, his pair of azure front feet suddenly shot out. A splatter of blood filled the sky in an instant. Why are you? Under the blood stains, there was Ma Chi's disbelieving look. His judgments were based on his previous experience in fighting geniuses, and even now, he believed that he had made no mistakes. But the person with the blood stains was actually him. His attack was only a little bit short of hitting Jia Yan's body. But it's just such a small difference, but it's simply impossible to do it. Jia Yan's front feet had already pierced his head one after another. The two big heads were pierced together, and his brain was completely destroyed. Even if the most powerful person came out, it would be impossible to save him. Why? Jia Yan shook his head. But before Jia Yan could say anything, the late-stage monster genius brought by the Western bandits had already seen the light of life slowly disappear from his eyes. He died. What Jia Yan didn't say was that the other party's talent was certainly powerful. He was the first person in this genius battlefield that he had seen such a powerful lord who could even fight with him for such a long time. Your only mistake is to fight another like me. Jia Yan laughed bitterly at himself. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 929. Genius remembers in 1 second to provide you with wonderful novels to read. Mobile access. Nameka didn't know that Jia Yan was not an ordinary starry sky creature at all, but a starry sky beast that was different from most creatures. The existence of the starry sky beast is different from ordinary creatures. Jia Yan's vitality and endurance far exceed that of ordinary starry sky creatures. The opponent's blow that hit Jia Yan before did not cause him too much damage. So Ma Chi's pursuit will only result in Jia Yan's most deadly counterattack. Just when Jia Yan was shaking his head in silence for Nameka's death, he suddenly felt that there seemed to be an extremely terrifying force condensing behind him. This power is extremely majestic. Compared with him, Jia Yan's strength is like a small insect, not even as good as a small insect. Under this powerful attack, Jia Yan had no doubt that his body would be completely destroyed by one move. Western bandit, don't go too far. Or, you want to fight with me now? Just when Jia Yan felt that he could not hold on, a sound like thunder suddenly sounded from the other side, and then Jia Yan only felt the pressure on his body suddenly disappear without a trace. Thank you, Senior. Jia Yan naturally knew what was going on. After getting rid of the suppression of the huge power, he quickly nodded and thanked Longta, who was standing aside. And he quickly turned around and looked at the existence that had released pressure on him before, the goat-like monster Western Bandit. Facing a stellar powerhouse, ordinary geniuses, even top geniuses, would not show any hostility. But Jia Yan was different. This time he was looking directly at the star-level monster that was extremely terrifying to others, and the gloom in his eyes could not be erased. "Senior, it's a fair fight between Ma Chi and I, why do you want to hurt me so well?" Jia Yan stared at the opponent and said coldly. "Oh? You actually dare to question me directly? Very good, Jia Yan, right? You are very courageous." The Western Bandit seemed a little surprised at Jia Yan's boldness. After hearing what Jia Yan said, he immediately smiled angrily. Words of praise. "Jia Yan, you are already sure of victory, but you actually killed a distinguished genius in my stellar academy. For this crime, I will naturally settle the matter with you in the genius battlefield. Now I will give you a day to rest. 1 day later, I, the top student of His Holiness, will avenge Ma Chi." The Western Bandits no longer concealed their murderous intentions in their words. What? In a battle of that level just now, Master Jia Yan was only given 1 day to rest? This is too much. It's really too much. If he didn't tell me, I would have forgotten that Mr. Jia Yan has been fighting in the genius battle for so long before, so the previous battle with that Ma Chi was not fair, and now he is just giving him a day off is just bullying Jia Yan. Why won't Mr. Longta say anything? One after another, when the audience heard that 11 Bandi, a stellar expert in the stellar academic field, actually gave Jia Yan only 1 day to challenge, they all immediately jumped to their feet and defended Jia Yan. Longta's demeanor also changed, and then he looked a little angry and wanted to say something. But just before that, a soft sound made the entire sky shut up in shock. It's just a matter of taking care of your genius from the sidereal field. Why take a day off? No need. I will fight with that friend from the sidereal field now. This voice was extremely clear, and the confidence contained in the voice, as well as the disdain for the geniuses in the stellar academic field, made all the creatures in the genius battlefield feel almost ecstatic and happy. But when they saw the speaker, they were all shocked, and some even shouted anxiously. It turns out that the talking monster is Jia Yan himself. He actually expressed his refusal and wanted to start a war now when the opponent's star level gave him rest time. This is too unwise. You have to know that what Jia Yan will face next will be a peak supreme genius that is more powerful than the previous supreme genius in the late stage. There is a huge difference between geniuses if their brainwave power is stronger. Which means that this opponent is definitely stronger than the previous venerable in the later stage. Master Jia Yan, let's rest for a while. 1 day? No, you should rest for 3 days, otherwise how can you exert your full strength? Some anxious creatures watching the battle transmitted brainwave power to Jia Yan. But they found that Jia Yan didn't seem to hear him at all. Even Nalongta asked Jia Yan a little uneasily. Jia Yan, you'd better take a rest. Don't let your previous victory fool you. There are still some geniuses in the stellar field. Don't worry, Lord Longta, I have enough fighting energy left to deal with that venerable peak. It was impossible for Jia Yan to ignore Longta's voice and still replied. After hearing Jia Yan's reply, Longta took a deep look at Jia Yan, who looked indifferent. Then nodded. Okay, West Bandit, Jia Yan can fight you, the pinnacle student of His Holiness, right now, but if you, this student, lose again, and you still want to bully me, a genius in the battlefield, don't blame me for not giving up. How could he lose? Anyway, I promise you, if Jia Yan is defeated later, just don't do anything. The Western Bandit didn't seem to believe that the other venerable student would lose. After sneering, he and the presence of the venerable peak gave a hint. Maybe they had already agreed to kill Jia Yan. The current situation was like this. If Jia Yan could win, it would be impossible for him to show mercy to the opponent. There is another venerable person in the Stellar Academy. He is a monster who doesn't like to talk much. He is somewhat similar to the manatee in the Earth world. But compared with Namekiah, he was much bigger, with a head and tail of more than 300 meters. Flying to the battle area left by the starry sky, the manatee monster looked at Jia Yan with a fighting spirit that almost made Jia Yan's eyes hurt. Horrible. This was Jia Yan's first comment to the other party. Jia Yan also flew over. In fact, he dared to continue fighting. It was not that Jia Yan underestimated this venerable person, but that Jia Yan knew that his strength had not been depleted too much before. This is the horror of the evolved beast. How strong! After Jia Yan came to an area where he could fight and stood still, the opponent's monster calmly spoke to Jia Yan. His voice is low and somewhat elegant, and it can be seen that he was born in an excellent manner. Jia Yan nodded. Although his demeanor was not as elegant as that of others, he was still approachable and generally not inferior to others. The other party looked at Jia Yan, and then made a gesture waiting for Jia Yan to attack. Jia Yan's heart sank slightly. He understood that this opponent was obviously much stronger than the previous Ma Chi. In fact, even the majority of the audience below saw this clue. This venerable peak monster named Duojian looked different from the previous Ma Chi. Even Nalongta looked a little shocked when he saw Duojian's expression. This venerable Duojian seems to be unusual. Could it be that this Western bandit actually brought a real top genius here? This is not in line with the rules. Longta was slightly startled, but then he was slightly worried about Jia Yan. You must know that Jia Yan was the most worthy of training talent he had seen since he had been a strong inspector on the border for a long time. He was ready to intervene. If Jia Yan was going to be defeated, he would definitely intervene. Of course, if the Western bandits tried to stop him, he wouldn't have much confidence in saving Jia Yan. Among the monsters present, only Naxi Bandit and Duojian himself know Duojian's talent. Although he has not reached the top genius level, his racial talent is unique. When he becomes a strong person in the second level, he can be promoted to the top genius level. Ranking, and now at the peak of the Supreme Master, he is no different from a weaker top genius. This is why the talented bandit is more confident in Duojian. At the same level, as long as a true top talent does not appear, Duojian cannot be defeated. Moreover, the theory of talent is not absolute. Maybe if there is a top-level genius whose attributes are just overcome by Duojian, it would not be a strange thing to lose to Duojian. In the eyes of the Western bandits, Jia Yan was doomed. Duojian, your companion Ma Chi asked me to take action first. Now I'm giving your Sidereal Academy a chance to take action first. You can take action. Jia Yan didn't seem to care about the worried expressions around him, but said a little stupidly. What? Duojian looked at Jia Yan in surprise. Jia Yan actually wanted him to take action first. Didn't Jia Yan understand that his strength was destined to be impossible to defeat him? Longta shook his head helplessly. He understood that Jia Yan really didn't understand the difference between geniuses. Jia Yan was already a small level away from the other person. Now he wants the other person. If you start first, you might lose here. Duojian, since little Jia Yan is so tolerant, go ahead and don't let him. The Western bandit was on the side, admonishing Duojian. Duojian, who originally didn't want to make the first move, had no choice but to make the first move. The manatee's body flicked slightly, and then a twisted and violent wind appeared in the entire starry sky. What kind of move is this? Jia Yan saw a roar in front of him, suddenly attacking him. He had seen countless moves and information before, but he had never seen such a unique combat skill. Under this move, he felt that the space he was in was isolated, and the entire power between heaven and earth was faintly far away from him. And the manatee monster, using this isolated power, slid towards Jia Yan with a slight movement. The body of the manatee monster has a sound wave. Before it gets close to Jia Yan, the sound wave makes Jia Yan's body tighten even more, making him almost unable to move. I can't even enter the second dimension. Jia Yan tried to enter the subspace, but was shocked to find that he could not enter the subspace. Haha, he used the talent inheritance of the star manatee family as soon as he came. It seems that Duo Jian still attaches great importance to Jia Yan, but after using this trick, Jia Yan should be defeated. After all, that is our stellar academic field. Over there, a top-notch clan's specialty combat skills. As if swimming in the starry sky, Duo Jian slowly came to Jia Yan, who could hardly move, and then struck down with a light blow. Thanks to book friend 1612120239265556 for the 500 starting coin reward. Thanks to book friend look 000 for the tip. Thank you mobile phone users, please visit Reading for a better reading experience. 600,000 Novel Network. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 930. What exactly is this move? Jia Yan looked at the manatee slap in front of him and wanted to avoid it, but he couldn't move his body. Phone reading. This is like being tied up with ropes all over his body. It is almost impossible for Jia Yan to escape by his own strength. Even Longta, who was watching the battle, was a little shocked when he saw this power. You know that he may be a star, but he can't see how to crack this innate ability. Of course, he can use pure power to crack it, but technically this is inferior. What to do? The manatee attack almost hit Jia Yan's head. Although Jia Yan believed that with his blue defense, he was absolutely confident that he would not be directly killed by this attack, injuries were inevitable. Correct. Suddenly, at this critical moment, Jia Yan seemed to have thought of something. Then, in the space behind Jia Yan's body, a terrifying attraction suddenly appeared. What's this? The manatee monster felt the sudden appearance of this power, and his expression changed. Then the angle of his attack was attracted by the attraction, and he actually hit Jia Yan on the shoulder. There were huge explosion-like sparks all over the starry sky. Jia Yan rolled and flew out of the center of the battle. A cracked mark appeared on his shoulder, and the blue defense here was extremely eye-catching. You must know that when the blue defense is activated, Jia Yan's defense is almost not broken, but the manatee monster at the top of the Venerable One actually causes a crack in the blue defense, which shows the terrifying power of his attack. Jia Yan was shocked, but little did he know that the other party was even more shocked than Jia Yan. Here, what move did this flying monster use before? Is it a black hole? What a terrifying attraction! And with his defense, I can't smash his shoulder with one blow. Wait. The manatee monster looked at the injury on Jia Yan's shoulder and was suddenly startled. Then he seemed to see something incredible and was stunned. It turned out that under his observation, Jia Yan's shoulder with a slight crack was slowly repaired in a blue color, visible to the naked eye. Such a terrifying repair ability? Or is this his special physique? Not only the manatee monster was shocked, but also the two stellar powerhouses who saw Jia Yan and Duo Jian's attack and defense were as if they were in a mess in the wind at this moment, almost too stunned to speak. This kid's name is Jia Yan, right? His recovery ability is too scary. But the black hole is just a small trick. As long as we find a way, we should be able to break it, but the physical condition is too scary. What kind of race is this? Such a horrible race, the likes of which I have never heard before. Seeing Jia Yan's terrifying physique, the Western bandits felt speechless, especially since their strong confidence became a little less firm. You must know that Duo Jian, the manatee monster, is the most powerful in his powerful stunts, but now that Jia Yan has a black hole to destroy, and with his super strong physique, he feels that even if Duo Jian wins, he wants to kill Jia Yan. That is also as difficult as climbing to the sky. Above the sky, Jia Yan stabbed out with one of his front legs. Then this front foot suddenly appeared next to Duo Jian, and Jia Yan, who was dozens of kilometers away, disappeared in this moment and appeared next to Duo Jian. Well done! Duo Jian yelled. As a genius in the stellar academic field, he was still confident in his own strength. Even though he had analyzed Jia Yan's difficulties, he did not think that he would really be unable to solve Jia Yan. Jia Yan's thrust came, and Duo Jian suddenly turned around, and then Jia Yan felt his thrusting forefoot tighten. His body was restrained again. But Duo Jian did not have much control this time. Instead, at the same moment when the restraining power was revealed, a terrifying attraction came to him, directly destroying his restraining power. Asshole, such a cheap move has no sense of beauty at all. I bet you weren't born into a big race, Duo Jian yelled and flew back with curses in his mouth. That's right, it's not a big race. As long as it can win, that's all, right? Jia Yan said lightly and moved forward to attack without letting go. The talents and tricks of the two were completely different. Jia Yan was slightly more direct and violent, while the opponent was more sophisticated. Moreover, both sides had trump cards that could not be killed by one blow from the other. The battle was actually a success. War of attrition. The battle above the sky was extremely fierce. The creatures watching the battle below were all fascinated by it. Oh my god, now I know that the venerable level can also reach this level. I am a half-star genius. I might not be able to defeat these two venerables. That's natural. Your strength is only at the semi-star level, less than 100. Jia Yan was in the top 10 before this. With you, you are 100,000 behind Jia Yan, thousands of miles. These two geniuses were able to fight like this, and Jia Yan was ordered on the spot. The opponent was a small level stronger than Jia Yan. It seems that no matter what, Jia Yan has won by fighting like this. I think so. Even if Jia Yan's strength is worse than the opponent's, it's not much different. But if he is one level behind the opponent and fights like this, if it were me, I would have given up defeat a long time ago. Although the noise below could not affect the battle situation, it would still distract the two geniuses who heard it. Duo Jian, you heard it? You are a small level higher than me, but you can't defeat me. I think you might as well admit defeat to save yourself the embarrassment of losing to me later. Jia Yan teased the other party. What do you know? I was born into a rich family. When I get to the next level, I will be born as a top genius. And you, even if you advance to the next level, will only be a high-level genius. Nothing you say now will sway me. Duo Jian seemed to be answering, but it didn't look like he was answering, and he said something to Jia Yan. When Jia Yan heard these words, a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. From this sentence, he could hear a lot of inner information. For example, he can know that Duo Jian still cannot be regarded as a top genius, and similarly, Jia Yan is not a top genius in the eyes of the opponent now. So, how terrible can a top genius be? Another point is that the other party is a so-called big family, so what is a big family? After hearing this, Jia Yan seemed to understand something vaguely, and then shook his head indifferently. Now I just need to fight hard, and these will open up to me later. Jia Yan escaped into the subspace. You want to sneak attack me again? Duo Jian didn't even look at it, and directly slapped his manatee somewhere behind. Then Jia Yan appeared from there as soon as he could reach his feet and ejaculated on Duo Jian's palm. The two powerful men exchanged blows again. Jia Yan used the power of brain waves to suddenly distance himself from the opponent. At this moment, the opponent's innate control ability happened to reach Jia Yan, and he suddenly escaped. There was no danger. Stop Jia Yan. Both sides are in some danger, but neither side is in danger because their strengths are too similar. Okay, Jia Yan, Duo Jian, let me judge you two in this match. Just when Jia Yan wanted to continue attacking, he was interrupted by Long Ta on the side. Huh? Longta, are you afraid? The Western bandit on the other side showed a sneer. Jia Yan suddenly stopped his hand. He was also a little surprised why Longta said the words Tai. When Na Duojian saw Jia Yan stop, he also stopped. Compared with Jia Yan, he seemed to have lost some physical strength and looked slightly tired at the moment. Afraid? I just think that if they continue to fight, they are destined to be unable to decide the winner. Instead of deciding the winner here, I think it is better to wait until we go to the Central Star District and arrange for Jia Yan and Duo Jian to fight. What do you think? Longta's words made the Western bandit fall into deep thought, and then he looked at Jia Yan with a bright light. Haha, you guys are trying to make Jia Yan improve his strength during this time, right? I forgot to tell you that Duo Jian is also practicing a secret technique of their race recently, and you won't necessarily be the only one by then. This Jia Yan will improve. Does he still have secret skills? Jia Yan looked at Duo Jian in front of him with some surprise in the battle circle. The other party saw Jia Yan looking at him, with a look of indifference flashing. You must know that even if you are sure of Jia Yan's strength, there is still a hint of Jian with a monster who is obviously not born into a rich family. Naturally arrogant. And this performance also confirmed to Jia Yan that the Western bandit was obviously not wrong. Duo Jian actually has the secret skills of the great clan. Okay, Duo Jian, let's fight again in a month. I hope that by then, you can master the secret skills of the great clan. Jia Yan made his own decision. Okay, I just hope you can survive for a while under the secret skills of our clan. Duo Jian saw Jia Yan's interested expression, and then nodded with an unhappy expression. If he hadn't been close to Jia Yan in strength now, he might have killed this local genius who was born somewhere. Since both warring parties agree to this battle, I won't say anything. Now I will go to the central area of your genius battlefield. I hope that in a month, Longta, you can find several high-level geniuses to fight with our students. When the Western bandit saw that Duo Jian had already made an agreement with Jia Yan, he couldn't say anything else, so he had to tear the goat's feet apart. Boom boom boom. There was a loud thunderclap in the sky and the earth, and then all the creatures in the starry sky saw an even bigger hole suddenly opened in the circle of nothingness. The bandit slowly flew towards the gap. Then we will meet again in a month. The Western bandits entered the void rift, and Duo Jian, who was standing opposite Jia Yan, looked at Jia Yan with a glint in his manatee eyes. Jia Yan, come and die in 1 month. Duo Jian also flew up and entered the circle of nothingness. Faintly, all creatures can still see that in the circle of nothingness, there seem to be several monsters, and there is even a monster that is not much smaller than the Western bandits. And this scene didn't appear for long before it disappeared immediately. 600,000 Novel Network. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 931. The vast universe is vast and boundless. Mobile access. Within the starry sky of this universe, a huge spaceship was flying rapidly. Master, I'm not talking nonsense. The Edisha can't fly that fast now, but it will be able to fly in the future. You have to believe me. The light and shadow of small giant mosquitoes surrounded Jia Yan's body, flying around anxiously. Okay, I understand. Just don't let me go, okay? The huge giant mosquito, all dark in color, was lying on the ground. Looking at the light and shadow flying mosquitoes, it shook its head speechlessly. Alas, Sector 132 is far away. Jia Yan looked behind the bridge, at the scene of stars receding in the distance, and stared deeply at it for a while with some emotion. It has now been 3 days since the Erlong Genius battle. After the Erlong Genius battle and the situation that the Western bandits appeared, although the next battle was said to continue, it would have to wait for a few days. Jia Yan did not have so much time to wait, so he regretfully chose to give up. But his rewards are still plenty, even more than the championship rewards. You must know that he is a suspected high-level genius, who can even kill a genius in the stellar academic field and draw with another. The top executives of the 132nd Star District are not fools. Let alone future prospects for such geniuses. Even if they do something under the banner of Jia Yan now, it will be a huge benefit. Therefore, according to Jia Yan's needs, they are naturally a few companies. I was as satisfied as breaking my head. Knowing that Jia Yan was short on time, in order to make up for the bad relationship between Erlong and Jia Yan, the Erlong forces even sent all their forces to give the Aditha maximum resource support. It took 2 days to repair some minor defects, and then Jia Yan drove the Aditha in 1 day, which showed his speed. In just such a short period of time, he had actually flown a distance that would have taken him 3 days to fly. It seems that it will only take about 10 days to return to the 251 star sector. Lovely Dasha said that the speed cannot be faster. You must know that it is at least several hundred light years away from the central star sector. After Jia Yan shook his head helplessly, he could only choose the method Nalangta taught him to quickly enter the central star area. It's just that the Aditha needs to fly slowly to the central area by itself. A few hundred light years is still an extremely terrifying distance for Jia Yan now. If he were to fly the Aditha, it might take several months to a year. In this month, I still need to summarize all the battles in the 132 star district during this period and continue to improve my strength, because when I get to the central district, I still have to fight Na Duojian. Thinking of the fight a month later, Jia Yan's eyes sparkled. You must know that for so long, he has really never encountered anyone at the same level as himself who can even fight with him, and in this genius battlefield, he actually met one. Moreover, in the genius battlefield, there are top geniuses who are even more talented than Duojian. Just when Jia Yan was about to formally summarize and improve his strength, he looked at the radar equipment on the Aditha, and then let out a little surprise. It turned out that a warship with the identification signal of Urshan Force was seen on the radar. I see, this is the Urshan Force seeker who came out of the Erlong Force, right? Jia Yan quickly analyzed the other party's identity. After the Erlong forces saw how terrifying Jia Yan was, they no longer had the slightest desire to fight against Jia Yan. Apart from anything else, they didn't dare to do anything just because of Longta's high hopes for Jia Yan. You must know that the genius battlefield officially exists. Although they will not easily kill the forces in the genius battlefield, if they want to protect a genius, the possibility of them destroying the Erlong forces is not impossible. What's more, with Jia Yan's current strength, even they don't have much confidence that he can kill him. Therefore, in order to repair the relationship with Jia Yan, King Erding not only came to apologize in person, but also explained why the Erlong forces invited Jia Yan, and that the Urshan forces were a marginal branch of their Erlong forces. So now that Jia Yan sees the battleship flying slower than the Aditha, he knows the other party's identity. In the sky, the huge Aditha quickly approached the one-man strong battleship. Ah, this is Jia Yan's battleship? It's too fast, there's no way to escape. Among the one-man battleships, the semi-star powerhouse of the Erlong force, who had previously sabotaged Jia Yan's competition and indirectly caused him to be called the Shadow Lord, had also discovered the Aditha driven by Jia Yan long ago. Number 1, but no matter how he tried to escape in the battleship, he still couldn't escape. After 2 days of repairs, the speed of the Aditha has improved a lot. Where to escape? Jia Yan drove the battleship to the side of this semi-stellar powerful battleship, and then he flew out of the Aditha. The brainwave power is released directly. At this time, Jia Yan's strength was far different from what he had been before. Under the power of a brainwave, the semi-star level expert in the battleship actually spurted out a mouthful of blood. He is only half a star in the 251 star sector. Although he is considered powerful in the 251 star sector, in the 132 star sector, he cannot even enter the top 100 powerful forces, let alone the Erlang Force Genius battle. It is estimated that even the top 1,000 people will not be able to enter. And if Jia Yan can enter the top 10, he will even have to fight against the semi-star geniuses in the top 10 to know who is stronger and who is weaker. So when faced with Jia Yan's brainwave power attack, he immediately spurted out blood. What a terrifying strength! Is this a high-level genius? There is a half-star level presence in the Urshan force with a fearful expression. You must know that he has seen all Jia Yan's behavior in the Erlang force before. As for his own power, he had provoked such a terrifying genius. He already felt that it was impossible to win, so when Jia Yan ended the battle with Duojian, he directly drove the battleship towards the 251 sector. Wanting to report the news, Urshan ran for his life with his family. Unexpectedly, just a few days after flying out, Jia Yan would be caught by chance. Originally, I didn't want to kill anyone, but you ruined my affairs several times and made me a cheater that everyone in the 132nd Star District yelled at for a period of time, so you must die. Puff. Jia Yan's brainwave power was fully activated, and then his body shot into the subspace. An instant later, a faint blue foot stabbed out from behind the half-star monster in the battleship's cab. The half-star genius of the NAER Dragon Force also wanted to avoid it, but his strength was different from the powerful geniuses Jia Yan had fought with, and he couldn't hide even if he wanted to. With a crack, Jia Yan's front foot stabbed into the opponent's body. You, Jia Yan, spare your life. The monster still wanted to beg for mercy, but in less than half a second, all the organs in his body were destroyed by Jia Yan's brainwave power. He also lost all his breath and died immediately. Jia Yan has never been a truly kind person. Except for people on Earth who he will treat well, alien creatures, even those with some entanglements, are not friendly at all. So killing this monster now doesn't mean much discomfort. After searching for useful things on this powerful battleship, Jia Yan flew back to the Aditya. Master, we are a few minutes behind schedule. We need to speed up. Aditya flew around Jia Yan, and then the Aditya started slowly. Jia Yan's return trip was in a hurry, and he had to snatch every second. But after seeing this half-star monster, he naturally had to deal with it. The Aditya, whose speed had increased significantly, picked up the high speed again and rode quickly towards the direction from which it came. Jia Yan, on the other hand, continued his research on improving his strength while on the road. He himself didn't know how Nalangta could be so confident in him. He thought that his strength would improve a lot in a month. He even heard that Najuojian had another powerful skill to be developed, so he didn't have anything to worry about. Of course, Jia Yan didn't know that in Longta's eyes, he had long ago changed from a genius worth cultivating to a genius who might be the future pillar of the battlefield. In the eyes of a true stellar powerhouse, the talent of a genius does not mean absoluteness, especially someone like Jia Yan. In the eyes of Longta, it is not much worse than a top genius. Of course, there is still a certain gap between the current Jia Yan and the top geniuses. But Longta has seen Jia Yan's improvement in several genius battles. You must know that it was only a few months. Jia Yan's improved strength was even more impressive. He felt terrible when he saw it. In 1 month, Longta believes that with Jia Yan's talent and hard work, he will definitely be able to reach a higher level. I have experienced the strength of Nameki and Duojian before. Their talents are all high-level geniuses, and their strength is not as terrifying as the suppression of semi-star geniuses, but regarding skills and the exquisite choice of fighting timing, is this the power of a true genius? Jia Yan was on the ground of the Aditya, silently thinking about the genius battlefield, or the definition of genius in the entire universe. In fact, Jia Yan had always believed that the so-called genius was someone who could practice faster than others and could kill enemies at higher levels. But when he really saw the so-called advanced genius, he realized that he was wrong. High-level geniuses need training speed, but this is not the main thing. What the strong ones value is the ability of these geniuses to transcend levels of combat and their understanding of moves. Jia Yan has always used the space combat method inherited from his predecessors. Recently, he has added the black hole to the combat combination. In this case, Jia Yan feels that his overall combat power is able to fight against a high-level genius, which shows the horror of high-level geniuses. So, am I considered a high-level genius, or a top-level genius? This problem has also been bothering Jia Yan. Jia Yan was originally very arrogant, but after seeing a real high-level genius, he realized that if he had not figured out the black hole strategy, he might not be considered a high-level genius, which surprised him. The inherited senior was a high-level genius in the genius battlefield back then, and Jia Yan almost couldn't reach his level. And now even if Jia Yan defeated the high-level genius, he still didn't have much confidence in his own position. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 932. Genius remembers in 1 second to provide you with wonderful novels to read. Mobile access. The 251 Star District is just like the low-level Star District with a large number of genius battle areas. No matter how war-filled this small marginal Star District is, it cannot cause any trouble. Even some forces in this Star District are completely destroyed. Can't create any news effect. This is the current situation of the entire genius battlefield. Even if there is an official management of the genius battlefield, there will still be killings, but they will not be made public. The birth of a genius always requires the stimulation of blood. It's not that the genius battlefield officials have no ability to control it, but they just turn a blind eye. A star field without killing would not exist in the entire galaxy. This day is also a similar day. Urshan Force, didn't you agree on that day that we would fight again in half a year? Why are you coming to attack Wuxi Force now? Haha, the time is almost up, and we recently saw that your Wuxi forces are trying to escape. If we don't come to stop you, maybe you will escape. That's right, Jia Yan escaped a long time ago. Now you are also ready to escape. Did we say it wrong? Since you want to tear up the agreement, you can't blame us for coming to destroy your Wuxi forces. In the starry sky, monsters bombarded a huge star. This star is about a few kilometers in size, and there is a transparent force on its surface to resist attacks from the outside world. But at this moment, the power of this transparent film is already shaking. Without the help of external force, it may be destroyed directly in a few minutes. And just outside the star, attacking this star are several half-star monsters, dozens of sub-level experts, and a considerable number of venerable geniuses. Among the attacking monsters, some use battleships and some use their own power. The strength of a half-star powerhouse may not be able to destroy the defense power of this star, but when the number reaches dozens or hundreds, the power of this attack is extremely terrifying. Within the star, several sub-level geniuses gathered around a semi-star powerhouse, their faces all filled with worry. Master Byario, what should we do now? A strong man from the second level looked at the half-star monster with a deathly expression, his expression extremely frightened. You must know that his strength is only a weak one among the strong men in the second level of the 251-star area. At least most of the group of strong men in the second level who are attacking can easily kill him. Several other powerful people in the secondary level had such expressions. In this genius battlefield, not all geniuses fight. In fact, there are also shadow sides, and even extremely inhumane killings often exist. The forces on the fringes are already considered good, and the ones here are all weak forces. The killings are a little better than those in the central star region, but it still happens now, and it happens to this besieged force. Urshan forces, they have gone too far. Hold on, I have notified Lord Wolfstar. Reinforcements will arrive soon. While looking at the energy of Wuxi's power astral defense, Bai Wangfu helplessly encouraged his subordinates. In fact, he didn't think Wolfstar would actually come. You must know that everyone in the starry sky pays attention to interests. If Wuxi's force cultivates a powerful genius, Wolfstar may come to help. But now we don't know whether Jia Yan is alive or dead. It is impossible for him, Wolfstar, to fight with Urshan for the sake of Wuxi's force. The forces are divided. Sir, I've told you before, don't even think about escaping. What should we do now? The Urshan forces have indeed attacked us first. A strong man from Jiguan said with some injustice to Bai Wangfu. Bai Wangfu was silent for a while. In fact, the current situation is entirely caused by Bai Wangfu and a group of strong people from the Guan dynasty. When Jia Yan left the 251 sector, there were some strong people in the Wuxi force who supported Jia Yan. However, as time went by, some respected people the reporter began to ask whether Jia Yan knew that he could not defeat King Urshan and ran away directly. After that, the entire Wuxi force slowly changed their tone, and even Bai Wangfu became dubious among a group of subordinates. Jia Yan had not returned for a long time, so they couldn't help but carry out the final plan, which was to move the entire force to another nearby star area. There would be a force there to take over their Wuxi force, but when the time came, Wuxi's force is no longer an independent force, but has become a link among other forces. But this is better than death. But the news was revealed at some point, and the powerful men of Urshan forces came to besiege them without any warning. In short, if I don't insist now, I have no choice but to persist. I finally understand that the biggest mistake I made at the beginning was to accept Jia Yan. The so-called disaster is probably this kind of existence. That's right. Who said they wanted to recruit him before? They also said he was a genius. As a result, Wuxi's power has now reached such an extent. It is simply a prelude to destruction. Wuxi's power has lasted for more than 300 years, and I still don't know. It's hard to survive today. Several strong men from Jiguan complained about Jia Yan one by one, and as they spoke, they vaguely looked at Bai Wangfu. You must know that the one they resent most is Bai Wangfu. Jia Yan's arrival was decided by several of them, but Jia Yan's position in Wuxi's power was promoted by Bai Wangfu. Now Jia Yan ran away when he got into trouble. As the person who promoted Jia Yan, it was normal for Bai Wangfu to be blamed by them. Okay, you don't need to say anything. I will send a message to the Urshan forces later. If my own life can save the entire Wuxi force, I will not frown. Bai Wangfu interrupted many voices about the existence of the strong man. When he said this, he was extremely disappointed in his heart. He knew that his reputation was not enough to convince the public, but he did not expect that at this moment, this group of subordinates would turn against him collectively. Well, if I can get through this difficulty, I think I will go out and travel. Bai Wangfu thought disheartenedly. He finally understood why such a powerful being in Wuxi's forces would, after going on a long journey, it is not without reason that Wuxi's force dropped from the good momentum back then to the bottom of the 251st sector. Poor people must be pitiful. Boom. Just when Bai Wangfu felt a little sad in his heart, a terrifying explosion sound appeared in the entire star. The number 3 main power furnace is destroyed. There is only a little defensive energy left, and it is estimated that it will not last for 1 minute. A strong person from the second level roared nervously when he saw the data on the dashboard. Release the energy shield for me, I'll rush out, you can take the opportunity to escape. Bairio moved his body, and his body filled with venom directly entered the fighting state. Although he is only at the bottom of the genius battle, he thinks that in actual battle, he can kill many strong men of the same level. At the same time that Bai Wangfu shouted these words, a huge light and shadow quickly slid from a distant place and approached the battle place like lightning. This huge light and shadow is a terrifying aircraft with a speed exceeding the speed of light. Within the aircraft, a black monster with a slender mouthparts is inside the aircraft, looking faintly at the space scenery beyond the bridge. When I went to the original stronghold of Wuxi's forces before, it was actually empty. They must have moved, right? The monster recalled what he had seen before with some confusion. He is Jia Yan, the giant mosquito. Before, Jia Yan went to the place where Wuxi's force was originally located, but he didn't see the planet where Wuxi's force was based. Moreover, when he searched several nearby mining areas, there was no trace of anyone there. This made Jia Yan a little surprised. You must know that Wuxi's forces had promised him that they would wait for him to come back. Even if they fled to the promised star area to find shelter, they would leave a message or send him a quick message, but now Jia Yan no messages were received at all. I hope there won't be any accidents. After all, Bai Huangfu of Wuxi's force is very good to Jia Yan, and Jia Yan has received a lot of help from this force, so he does not want this force to die. The speed of the Edisha increased greatly, and it flew rapidly in the starry sky towards the vast universe. Master, the Edisha intercepted a strange signal. Suddenly, Edisha flew to Jia Yan and said this to Jia Yan. What strange signal? Jia Yan's heart moved, and then he looked at Edisha. This is a signal from a certain force asking for help from Wolf Star. The specific force is not specified, but it seems that they do not have the means to directly communicate with Wolf Star, so this signal is transmitted by broadcast. Huh? The force is asking for help from Wolf Star. Jia Yan asked Edisha to open the letter from that force, and then he felt a sense of astonishment in his heart. Quick! This must be Wuxi's force. And let's go over and have a look. At Jia Yan's urging, the Edisha turned around from space, and then flew away like lightning and flint towards the place where the signal was sent at a speed that most warships in the 251 sector could not reach. The signal was vague. Jia Yan didn't know what kind of crisis Wuxi's forces were facing, and he wasn't even sure that it was Wuxi's forces asking for help. However, from between the lines, he could read clues that the other party was Wuxi's forces. That being the case, Jia Yan will not let go of this small detail. Anyway, there is no loss if he gets it wrong. At this moment, Wuxi's power is even more shaky. When the protective shield was about to burst, a half-star monster suddenly shot out from the star to the outside world, and then collided hard with the half-star monster. Haha! Bai Huangfu, you finally dare to come out. When the monster saw Bai Huangfu aiming directly at him, he smiled ecstatically. Bai Huangfu's slender body whipped the half-star creature hard, but the opponent's strength was obviously superior to Bai Huangfu. When Bai Huangfu's body came, he gently avoided it, and then kicked Bai Huangfu with his foot. Bear husband's torso. In the interstellar space, the monster Bai Huangfu spurts out blood. Haha, even though I was seriously injured, you have also been poisoned by me. Bai Huangfu looked at the semi-star level enemy angrily, showing a sneer. This was Bai Huangfu's plan. Even if he suffered serious injuries, he would cause huge casualties to the semi-star geniuses who besieged Wuxi's forces. That might create an escape opportunity for all the creatures in Wuxi's force. Thanks to a book friend who tipped me, I can't see the name, sorry. In addition, there is only this chapter today, and the state is extremely poor. Mobile phone users, please visit Reading for a better reading experience. 600,000 Novel Network. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 933. As long as someone from Wuxi's force can escape and preserve the blood of this force, it doesn't matter whether he dies or not. Brother, you died for Wuxi's forces, so I will inherit your legacy and become the new patron saint of Wuxi's forces. After Bai Huangfu was severely injured, he remembered the resolution he had made when the brother he admired most died in a fight a few years ago. At that time, in order to achieve this wish, he used great courage and tried to advance directly from the Venerable to the half-star. After a narrow escape, he succeeded by chance, and then became the new patron saint of Wuxi's force after achieving his wish. Although, it's just that everyone doubts him, and he is also known as the weakest protector in history. But now, at the most dangerous moment for Wuxi's power, the weakest protector resolutely stood in front of an almost impossible enemy. He was using his death to express his will. Above the starry sky, a ray of light appeared. The half-star powerhouse, who seemed to be poisoned after being struck by Bai Wangfu, actually laughed and appeared in front of all living things without any hindrance. Ha ha ha, Bai Wangfu, do you think your toxicity is perfect? It's ridiculous. We have already studied your toxicity. In this technological age, you think you can't crack such a tiny poison? Bai Wangfu looked at this vigorous genius in shock, feeling a little desperate. Bai Wangfu also smiled bitterly and was relieved. The strength of the opponent's force must have some geniuses with technological capabilities. Bai Wangfu had also used venom several times in several genius battles, and in this use with the frequency, if the opponent came to attack, how could he not find a way to break his poison before coming? The half-star genius suddenly came to Bai Wangfu's side, and his attack was fast and urgent. Although Bai Arafu could clearly see the opponent's speed, he had no way to avoid it. After all, the gap between the two sides in terms of hard power is too big. A pool of blood appeared in the air. Without the poisonous damage, Bai Wangfu's strength gap with his opponent is too big. He was seriously injured again. Wait a minute, we are about to break through the Wuxi force's astral defense. Let Mr. Bai Wangfu see how his Wuxi force was destroyed by us. A semi-star genius from the Erlong force suddenly called out to the strong man who was about to kill Bai Wangfu. That's good. I think Bai Wangfu is inexplicably extremely loyal to Wuxi's forces. Even if a group of subordinates have no respect for him, he is still so loyal. Stupidly, let him see with his own eyes what he wants to protect. How to destroy small forces. The half-star powerhouse who attacked Bai Wangfu responded with a smile. While they were talking, Bai Wangfu also wanted to resist, but his strength was suppressed by the opponent. No matter how he attacked left and right, there was no possibility of breaking through. Just under his desperate eyes, a burst of light appeared on the surface of Wuxi's power star. Then Wuxi's power star lost its protective cover and was directly exposed to the eyes of a group of powerful Erlong forces who looked like wolves and tigers. Haha, let's go. Seeing such a scene, several strong men from the second pass charged down without any fear. Although artillery fire roared up on Wuxi's power planet, most of the energy of the artillery fire had already been used in the defensive shield. Now it can't hurt the strong men in the second level when it is fired. After all, although it cannot be said that each of the powerful starry sky creatures has the power to withstand artillery fire, they all have unique skills, so it is not difficult to avoid artillery fire. Puff! A strong man entered the artificial atmosphere of Wuxi's power star. He burst out with great strength. As soon as he entered, he made a terrifying sound of explosion. Countless devices in the star below made explosion sounds. As for the venerable geniuses among Wuxi's forces, some of the weak ones were seriously injured in the explosion. You must know that although there is only one level difference between the venerable master and the strong men from the next level, the other person is a powerful genius. The geniuses in the Ci force are less talented, and they are one level behind, so it is not a shocking sight to see the other party using brainwave power to cause large-scale casualties to the venerables of the Wei force. Asshole! Bai Wangfu saw the scene in the starry sky and angrily tried to break free from the shackles of his half-star opponent, but to no avail. He could only watch helplessly as Wuxi's powerful geniuses were severely injured, and some of the weak ones even died. The canthus of Bai Wangfu's eyes were about to burst, and he almost wanted to spurt blood. He hated his lack of strength and talent. If he had been stronger, he wouldn't have been so insulted by the Erlong forces. Haha, Bai Wangfu, don't you want to escape? Don't you believe Jia Yan? Do you still believe him now? Do you still think this so-called high-level genius is real? Let me tell you, I will deal with you after. It's Jia Yan's turn. This kid is not a high-level genius, he is just a waste like you. Bai Wangfu was startled. He thought that everything Wu Xi's forces were suffering now seemed to be caused by the higher genius Jia Yan. So, will he blame Jia Yan? No. I believe that Jia Yan is a real high-level genius. Just wait. Soon it will be half a year's appointment. Jia Yan is back. Knowing that my Wu Xi force was destroyed by the Erlong force, your Urshan force will also following in the footsteps of Wu Xi's forces. The half-star powerhouse who controlled Bai Wangfu saw that Bai Wangfu was still talking nonsense at this moment, and immediately struck with a serious look on his face. Bai Wangfu was trapped by his move. If the opponent didn't want him to die directly and didn't see the moment when Wu Xi's power was broken, he would have been able to kill him long ago. This blow would be more severe than the serious injury suffered by Huang Fu. His slender body was almost broken into two pieces, and his breath was faintly extinguished. But Bai Wangfu seemed to have regained his consciousness and was still shouting loudly. Haha, Urshan force, if you weren't afraid, why would you come to attack Wu Xi force without following the rules? No matter how I die today, I will wait underground, wait. Let's see how your Urshan forces suffer the same fate as my Wu Xi forces. Humph, since you are still talking nonsense, there is no need to wait any longer, just die like this first. After the face of the half-star monster changed drastically, it finally showed a cruel look. The strength of his feet suddenly increased, and he struck Bai Wangfu with all his strength. If this blow were to hit, given Bai Wangfu's current physical condition, it would be impossible to escape death. Although Bai Wangfu also understood this, he was seriously injured and it was impossible to escape the blow. He could only stare at the opponent's head, as if he wanted to remember the person who caused his death. And at this moment, an indifferent voice with a hint of anger spread throughout the battlefield. He can't die. Following the man's voice, a sharp foot slowly appeared from the starry sky. This foot appeared in the twisted subspace, and behind this space, it seemed that the speaking monster was the body, and just hearing this voice, the surrounding strong men, whether they were the venerable level or the sub-level strong level, or even the half-star level, felt a sense of shock in his heart. Judging from the voice, you can tell that he is not an ordinary strong person. In fact, this is also the case, this foot appears for only 1/1000th of a second. After that, he gently stabbed the vital part of the back of the monster that was about to kill half a star then Huang Fu. A puff of blood appeared on the battlefield like an explosion. And the owner of this blood was the half-star powerhouse who was extremely proud and wanted to kill Bai Wangfu. The body of the half-star monster was suddenly on the verge of death. At the last moment of death, he turned around in disbelief, wanting to see which terrifying creature had killed him. And coincidentally, the murderer who stabbed him to death also happened to step out of the subspace with an indifferent expression. The eyes of both parties met directly. It's you," the other party shouted suddenly, but he only said half of his shocked words before his head tilted and he died immediately. Bai Wangfu wanted to wait for death, but when he heard the sudden sound and saw the monster in front of him that was killing him, he was suddenly startled and died. He originally thought that the sudden voice seemed familiar, but when he looked up, he saw the owner of the voice appearing from the subspace. "It's you!" Bai Wangfu screamed in surprise. "Find bookstore. Haha, let's reminisce about old times later. I'll clean up these guys who are causing trouble." The monster that suddenly appeared nodded to it lightly, and then turned to the monsters from the Urshan forces who were looking at this place, who were also extremely shocked. You are A half-star monster looked at the monster that appeared and seemed to recognize him, with an expression of extreme horror. But before he could call out the creature's name, the dark black visitor used its sharp front legs to thrust suddenly, piercing into his body at a speed that was impossible for him to react. This, how did he become so scary? Several semi-star powerhouses from the Urshan forces on the other side also recognized the identity of the visitor, but they were so frightened that they simply could not believe that this visitor was the existence they knew. Your Urshan forces have gone too far. After negotiating terms with me, you actually killed me, the genius of the Wusai force. You even want to destroy the entire Wusai force. So if I destroy you Urshan, it will be just and right. The dark monster faintly passed by the half-star genius. Afterwards, the Wusai power monster with a frightened expression made no sound, and was completely split in two from its head to its abdomen. You. Seeing that this dark monster had just appeared for a moment and actually killed 3.5-star level experts, the remaining 2.5-star beings in Urshan's forces were so horrified that they could hardly speak. They were too familiar with this terrifying existence. It was not a friendly familiarity, but hostility. Jia Yan. You are back, and your strength has become so terrifying. A semi-star level powerhouse from Urshan finally shouted out the name of this terrifying existence with a trembling voice.